so you mentioned 1978. I mean, books that are stretching back. Your career spans decades. If you could go back in time and sort of have a conversation with your younger, aspiring writer self, are there any pieces of one or two pieces of advice that you would give to yourself that you think would serve a young writer well going forward?
Well, the first piece of advice would be something that I guarantee you that my younger self would not listen to, and that is just to be patient, because my first book came out when I was 14. It was actually like a middle school English assignment, and that was really, really cool to publish a book at 14, but when I think back to that time, the prevailing emotion that I remember is impatience. Everything took forever. I mean, I wrote the book when I was 12. I didn't sign the contract till I was 13. It didn't come out till I was in high school. It just seemed like everything was taking forever. So I would say, where's the fire? Chill and just be patient. The other thing I would say is listen to editors. I think when you're a kid, you have a tendency, or any young writer and beginning writer, to think the editor is the person who separates the wheat from the chaff and then publishes the chaff. And I think that they know what
they're supposed to publish. I thought they published the wheat.
Yeah, well,
I get it wrong.
That's the old joke. But here's the thing. A lot of times, and I'm sure you've had this in your career too, Alan, where an editor will say, this isn't working for me, why don't you try X? And you think about it and you just know that X is dead wrong. No way you're going to do X. X is not right. But still, just the fact that your editor suggested it indicated that that particular section needs something. Doesn't need X. But even when your editor is wrong, they tend to reveal something that's right.
It's a really good point, because the one thing that I have found in working with editors is that it requires you to be willingly vulnerable in a way, because sometimes the project isn't working, but it's not about you personally. It's about the project isn't working, and a new scene, a new twist, this or that, and not taking it as like, oh, I stink, or I quit, they're never going to let me write this book, and blah, blah, blah. Like, writers tend to get into their heads a lot on that angle, and when you can put that to the side and realize editors are actually trying to befriend you and save you from yourself in a way, it really can open up a novel in a lot of ways.
Yes, and I think also that's one of the reasons why you need editors you're extremely comfortable with, just because there are going to be a few points where you have to just take a flyer and do something that you don't necessarily agree with that much. It's kind of like, well, I don't see it, but I'll take your word for it. And when you're putting your work, every time I do that, it's always worked out great. That's why you don't do it all the time. You have to be very selective about it, but occasionally you just have to say, maybe you're right, let's try it that way. And it usually works out for me.
Yeah, that's a really good point, is that being willing to try, because you don't know what door is going to open if you just give it a shot. And
yes,
sometimes they're not right about what the solution is, but they are right, at least in diagnosing there's an issue here that needs remediation.
Yeah, even if they're not right, you're bound to find what is right in trying to address that place.
Gordon, I want to just say thank you very, very much for sort of, chiming in with us today. We are going to steer everybody who's ever tuned into the internet at all, go to Gordon's website now. He's got awesome stuff, great stuff. I couldn't be a bigger fan of the work of Gordon Korman. You can check out all his information right here on the screen. You'll see it prominently displayed. We would hope that you also take a moment to maybe like us on Facebook, check us out on YouTube, spread the word, let us know. Visit Gordon. He tweets. I tweet. Who doesn't tweet? We got all the social media things working. Once again, Gordon, welcome. Thank you. Appreciate your efforts so much today.
Thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.